Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The App. The App, I always have to say this, has nothing to do with computers.
Right.
The App stands for Architects, People, and Politics. We like to visit with everybody on the political spectrum. And today, our special guest in studio is State Representative Tammy Phelps.
Thank you, Jeff.
Tammy, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Democrat from District 3, right? I got the district right.
Yes.
Sometimes tough for me to remember those numbers.
It's a lot.
But we appreciate you being here, and we got a lot of stuff we want to talk about. And I guess we should probably start with just the most obvious, the most recent, and that was the failure of the constitutional amendments on the most recent ballot. And I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
Very thankful that they did not pass and that the voice of Louisiana was loud.
It sure was.
It was loud. And that's the engagement that we really need as we move Louisiana forward. It wasn't a partisan issue, not a black-white issue. I think Louisiana spoke across the board, white, black, Democrat, Republican. Those numbers were sound with that, and I think that's what we need.
Obviously, you were not in favor of those amendments.
Not at all.
We've had numerous of your colleagues in here that were.
Right.
So explain to me why you were against those.
First of all, let's just say the judiciary ones, no one really asked for that was a problem, you know.
The specialty courts thing?
Yes.
That one? Yeah.
And either one of those. Number two, of course, the most controversial. And I was just speaking with a college student this morning that even talking about teacher raises, you didn't have to do one with the other. We did not have to try to give a raise and repeal trust funds.
Too much stuff in one amendment,
and they don't go together. You know, of course, whatever the narrative was, vote for this all, and it's all not good. Again, just a separation of a raise. It had nothing to do with those funds, or should not have, because those are the educational heart of support to our districts from the state of Louisiana.
Okay.
That was, and also when we talk about, again with this conversation, if Louisiana begins to make education a priority, that would not have been the language in a bill at all.
Okay.
You know, taking away education from assistance from the state to the districts. I truly don't believe that districts will be able to do that alone.
Okay.
There's no way.
All right. You think the state should still have more control? Okay.
Okay. Not necessarily control.
Well,
it's not control. It's called assistance.
Okay. Well, okay. Sorry, bad choice of words, I guess.
That was not a good one. And I know a lot of people use that narrative. Just like U.S. government didn't have control, they monitor equality and fairness. You know, again, every cut from the federal government is going to affect the state of Louisiana. That's a no-brainer, you know. So what do we look? You know, we talk about Medicaid. I think that's been a topic we're waiting to see. Louisiana being one of the poor states. Number two, I believe that's the case. And every congressman that we have, that's going to affect Louisianans across the state, you know, so in hospitals. So what are those cuts going to be? These are people who need it. It's not always fraud in things of need for people to exist in the democracy that our country was built on. So it's changing, I don't think in a good way, but I'm glad Louisiana was mindful, and I hope they continue to be engaged to know what's going on. And I always believe in accountability. I was going to say we all should be held accountable, you know, from local government to the federal government. If you were asked to put a vote, a decision behind our name, you should be telling us and holding us accountable. If we're not doing what you ask us to do, in the sense of crying out for assistance and how these changes could affect ones in their district and across the state, accountability should be there.
Okay. So let's just talk about that Amendment 2 specifically for a couple minutes. And that's the one where the teacher raises were included. And the premise, as I understand it, was that the $2,000 stipends that the teachers have been receiving for the last couple of years, in that amendment would then become permanent, and that was considered to be a raise.
And I Beg to differ.
Yeah.
And I'll say that because when this started in 2023, I believe, when we had a surplus of money and the legislature, I thought were in across the board after COVID, every teacher across our nation deserved a raise, and no one deserved one more than the state of Louisiana teachers. It's a majority, so that's why that did not happen. You know, it was supposed to be in the budget. I was on education during that time. We had Senator Fields, chairman at that time. It was in the MFP. We did all that with a special meeting in education before that vote in education committee. So we didn't know that it was going to change on the floor. And so that is what constituted this stipend. And 23, 24, here we are 25.
Right.
And again, the financial status that the previous Governor Edwards left us in, that still could have been priority for this administration from day one.
Okay.
But it seems it was, crime reform and making
tax reform.
Tax reform and building more prisons and dealing with more juveniles and putting money toward primary elections, everything other than teachers.
So I guess that then leaves the question, there's no money, as I understand it, in the governor's executive budget for teacher raises this coming fiscal year.
That's what I'm told.
That's what I'm told too. And so now I guess the teachers are saying, well, what about it? Where's our money? What about us? Where's our raises? And I don't know what the answer to that is. Do you?
I don't know, and it's necessarily raises. Teachers that I've spoken to, I really have tried to explain when we do the math, $2,000 a year, 52 weeks, $38 a week, 100 plus a month. But then there's a state tax raise.
Right. Yeah.
Or potentially, like every raise that we always talk about, then there's an insurance health care raise.
Sales tax raise.
Right.
Yeah.
You won't see it. But was that worth, repealing trust funds?
Yeah.
For your profession? It was not, because it should not have been tied together at all. And so, and I've, of course, been a teacher, and I know what that feels like.
So, but my understanding was the idea is, I understand it, and I may not understand it, but it was to take that trust fund money, use it to pay down the retirement debt, the unaccrued liability, and then that would save hundreds of millions of dollars in interest, which would then be used by the districts to give raises to the teachers. Am I understanding that incorrectly?
No, you're understanding that was the narrative. My concern there was we were already on track of paying this debt down by 2029, if nothing changed, which we still are since it did not pass. I don't know what potential things.
I'm not quite sure I've heard that before, actually, about the 2020.
Yeah, yeah, we were already on track
that's interesting.
For that.
Yeah.
And so that was the argument in 23. Why we did not give the teachers a raise at that time, at the end of session. And again, majority was in the House, and there's only one majority. That's what rules. That's what those votes went. The same majority that's pushing that supports the amendments. So again, let's go back to already on track. We had always talked about giving raises for the last, since I can only vouch for since I've been there.
Right.
And we were looking for a big one there. And so paying down the retirement funds, but again, it did not have to be from these funds.
Okay.
There was a surplus there at the very beginning, but we went in and did a whole lot of things that, in my mind, were not priority.
Okay.
Because if it was about teachers' raise, that should have been priority off the top in the MFP, the way that it normally should be.
Okay.
And the retirement's there. But again, merging of the other funds, the rainy day and the budget stabilization, when that was very hefty funds. And I disagreed when we were meeting with the speaker and our colleagues about, hey, this is what we're looking to do. What's your thought on it? I didn't agree with it then, because savings accounts are there for a reason. The trust funds are there for a reason. The people of Louisiana who wrote the Constitution thought enough then to use oil spill money and tobacco settlement money to put aside, and I think they deemed that education was going to be a priority for us. And to now, we've been living on interest or servicing our students on interest all this time.
Yeah.
Repealing the interest and the funds, I don't think that had to do with the teacher raise.
Okay. Well, that's interesting stuff. So now, though, the legislature will be tasked with, if you're even going to give the teachers a raises this upcoming year, I guess, to finding almost $200 million to be able to do that, right?
Right. I'm not on that side of having to look.
Okay.
I wasn't on the side of doing it this way at the beginning, so
Yeah.
I'm in that minority number, Jeff.
I gotcha.
So, I mean, if they want to see it, let's bring the franchise tax back. You know, let's not deal with the inventory tax. You know, if you're my thought has been, at the end of the day, if we're going to reduce state revenue, that is going to constitute state services that are going to be reduced.
Yeah.
So if that's the plan, everything falls in place. But if it's about moving Louisiana forward, we cannot or could not ever afford it to reduce our state income.
Okay. So you disagree, I guess, with your colleagues that think the tax moves they made is what was needed to move Louisiana forward?
I don't see anybody knocking down our doors to come and this is what we want to do across your state, because nothing prevented that anyway. And these are conversations that I've had, you know, with my colleagues again. What businesses are we looking to attract by, you know, repealing the franchise tax? There are other states that have it as well, but they're not states that are as poor as Louisiana. So again, that to me wasn't a good move. We talked about adjusting the inventory tax. That has a lot to do with our parish. You know, cattle will be affected a lot on just those changes, and we're still waiting to see how that could happen and when everybody was going to get together and see what's good for our parish. That's still revenue loss.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, to be fair, as I understand it, there has been some pretty big businesses that are moving into the state, the Hyundai steel plant, or at least they've said they're planning to move in.
And if those things have been in the work for a while, that just didn't happen in January.
I got you. Okay. Well, sure. I mean,
So they were going to come with the taxes in place anyway.
So it didn't. So you're saying that didn't matter?
In my opinion, it didn't. Not before January.
Okay. All right. Well,
of last year.
I mean, I guess that makes sense, but I'm just wondering if maybe they knew about the tax plans that were in place.
Well, there are a lot of conversations that go on, so could have been, you know.
I'm certainly not privy to any of those. But
neither am I.
I want to.
And now, if I can say, that's still the industry, a part of our state of where they are anyway. So it's not Shreveport. It's not, you know, northeast. Well, as far as those. But the steel companies and that manufacturing is already in those areas of our state. So that's no surprise that they would have been coming, which is great, you know. But that Ascension Parish is a lot different than Cattle Parish.
Well, sometimes it feels like it's two different states.
It does.
And you know that. I want to flip back to the amendments that were on the ballot just a minute and ask you about one. I think it was amendment number 3, and that dealt with 17-year-olds, and I guess it was expanding the number of crimes for which minors could be charged as adults. It seems like that was pretty unpopular at the ballot box.
I think it was unpopular in the session, Jeff, to me, because I remember asking, what crime were you wanting to add? And of course, we were never given an answer of what do you want to add. So you just want Louisiana to give you a blanket slate on what the legislature at that time deems necessary. And there have been some egregious things done over the years. Let's just say last year, I think there was a rash of carjacking in New Orleans and the Baton Rouge area. New Orleans attempted to address those issues by local bills. So if we thought hijacking should have been in the Constitution, then we should have done that, you know. So anything that's more egregious than what's already on the books, we had a way to just add that one. So I think it went about the wrong way when it was already a, you know, reverse of juvenile age from 18 back to 17. And again, I'm not at all about, you know, not holding our teenagers accountable or our parents, because this is a day where everybody should be aware of what's going on, and definitely we as parents should be accountable with our children, of making sure that they know the laws and not getting into certain situations. I definitely agree with that. But there's a way to do it. I really remember you're making me go back. Maybe this was a year 22 or something like that. There was a big a push of having mental health screenings or some type of psychological screening to our teenagers before being put in a facility or expelled from school. Okay. And we even had our youth legislatures come and support this bill in the Education Committee.
Okay.
That bill did not pass on the floor from healthcare workers, school psychologists, and all of that. No, we don't need to evaluate you to see, what's going on with you. Mm-hmm. The very next bill was a bill to evaluate teenagers of what facility to put them in.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, we're there, we're present, and you have an opportunity to go back. Hey, this was like this then. Mm-hmm. And again, that took me back to that particular bill. We want to find out which facility suits you best without seeing why you're going to be expelled, or that was about school at the time. And now we just want to expand the crimes. Yeah,
it seems like that old adage, like find me a crime and then I'll fit a person to fit it.
There you
right?
go. It does.
From the way you describe it, it kind of feels like that a little bit. I mean,
and it shouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
With stakeholders at the table, and I understand I wasn't part of the legislature when the juvenile age was raised to 18, back like it was once before. Mm-hmm. But every stakeholder was there at the table, I'm told. The sheriffs, the DAs, all the law enforcement people and engaged there. And that said a lot. And even just since that time, I think the climate has changed so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's look ahead a little bit now.
Okay.
Because we have, you have, I'll be there a little bit, but okay. You have a new session upcoming in just a few days. Mm-hmm. And based on what's gone on here in this most recent election, what went on in a couple special sessions last fall, what do you look forward to out of this session? What should the public be looking at?
Oh, I was going to say, you're asking me what to look forward to.
Well, let's start with the public.
Let's start
with the public first, I guess.
For the constituents of Louisiana, please just stay present. There may be more conversation about insurance rates.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely was not a fan of getting rid of the 3-year rule. Again, for
you didn't like that.
I really didn't. We did ask in committee, and even some of the my colleagues that represent parts of the South where the weather is worse there. We asked for a phase-in, not necessarily end it after the session. I can't remember when it went into effect.
Yeah.
But it was relatively quickly after being signed. Mm-hmm. It could have been a phase-in over a couple of years or something, at least giving people, the opportunity to get used to it and know that it's coming.
I don't mean to interrupt, but as I understand it, the 3-year rule was if you're an insured with a certain company and they've renewed you for 3 years, then they cannot drop you from their roles.
Within the 3 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I think insurance would have reason to drop you. I don't know if it was just, a blanket slate of not being able to. I understand it that way. Mm-hmm. But again, in year 4, if you have reasons to, and maybe, there's somewhere in there, they don't have to have a reason to drop you. I think that might be legit as well. But that did give people stability, in worse areas or different areas across the state than even Caddo Parish, in Northwest Louisiana. Mm-hmm. They are not able to get, insurance just based on where they live. This is not anything that they've done of not paying their premiums or something, And again, I don't think from and I guess I've heard more than I've ever thought I would. Of course, insurance is all about profit.
Yeah, well, there's no question
all
about
the profit. Yeah. So I've never heard them talk about, there's been, talk about the 3-year rule that kept them from coming. again, we were part of the session a couple of years ago when Commissioner Donaldson was there, and we're, in meetings talking about, hey, this X amount of money is going to bring businesses here, bring companies here. And that was a very tough situation and vote to be in, Jeff, I would have to tell you.
Okay.
Because I did not really feel good about money again enticing companies to come.
Yeah.
What's going to happen once they're here and they leave? Where are the grounds that they have to stay? How many people or premiums are they going to write up? What areas of the state would that be in? I don't think we've gotten any of those. The answers are available, let me say that. I have not gone back to that. There has been some discussion with our new commissioner of saying, hey, where are those reports? We, would like to see them. But we do know that it did not bring companies. All the money was not utilized in the sense that it was going to be, hey, I want to take a part of this. No one exceeded or, we diminished those funds. The funds are still available.
Yeah,
but I think some of it was wasted.
You're talking about the fund that the state created to entice
with
carriers.
The monies that we gave away.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Because it wasn't created for
Well,
that. It's just, hey, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And no lawmaker wanted to be a part of at least attempting and listening to what the commissioner is saying, even if we had doubts about it. No one wanted to come forth and say, hey, we know this is not going to work. Well, we did say this in some meetings behind closed doors.
Yeah.
We know it's not going to work, but this is what you're saying. But we do want the constituents of Louisiana to know that we're open to do whatever your expertise, your toolbox says we need to do at this point. But it really turned out just the way that I thought, and most of us thought that it would.
Yeah. In your opinion, has the atmosphere for insurance companies improved in the state?
I don't think so. I've shared this too with colleagues in insurance with the commissioner. We addressed a lot of the homeowners insurance, which has all been on the business side of things. Since this new administration, we have not addressed consumer side of savings. Okay. And that's going to be hard to do, which we just had, little insurance conversations. I said, we don't have control over rates.
Right, no, of course not.
So when we tout that we're going to lower rates, my colleagues don't agree on this one.
Yeah, okay. So that you have, well, obviously you don't have control.
Because they'd be down 50 years ago.
Of course, but I guess the hope is that the lawmakers can create an atmosphere for the companies to come in and
that sounds good.
Well, it does sound good.
Yeah,
that's the
idea. We've been doing that the 5 years I've been there.
Okay.
We've been creating narratives that sound good.
Okay.
Tort reform, our first year there.
Right, yes, I remember that one very well.
Yeah, and it was contentious.
Yeah, yes, it was. Yeah. And I remember Lobby was a big supporter of.
They always are. It's all about the profit for the businesses.
And I remember the director of Lobby at the time. I liked him. Nice guy. Was super in favor of that, and on the last day, and it passed, and he kind of came out the building and was dancing down the steps. He was so happy that it passed. Well, it's I think 4 years later,
and where are we? Jeff?
And it hasn't changed. It hasn't helped, has it?
Not at all. And it's really not a funny situation, but just on the heels of where we're coming from, it has not changed. And that is where, again, I'm talking with my colleagues about the fact we can create all these narratives about what we can do to change it. But if it was that easy, why are the insurance companies not telling us what needs to be done to do that?
Why
they'll go along with it because I guess it's all about the profit.
Well, okay. So they're in it to make money. Let's face it, every company is in business to make money. Otherwise, they won't exist.
Exactly. But why Louisiana? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why is it even with homeowners insurance and hurricane seasons and things that we can't change? Florida's not a poor state. When we look at North Carolina, wherever the climate is for such things. Yes, we are the highest premium state, but again, why is that? I don't have an answer.
I don't
what I
either.
mean?
Yeah.
And so when we going back to tort reform, and we're talking about, it's the lawyers, it's the trial lawyers, and it's the injuries, and All of these things are the claims that are so high and all of this. And the billboards and the lawyers are advertising.
Right,
I mean, all of that was a part of this conversation.
Well, you still hear that.
Like, stop it already.
Okay.
It's not working. I said, so now you're going to go after lawyers in their professions. So, I mean, so when do we attack healthcare workers or doctors for commercials and billboards for healthcare premiums? They don't go together. So the narratives, I think, have got to be more realistic and honest about what the issues are. I don't know if we'll ever do that. There were several attempts that talks about, what about the demographics that seem to be discriminatory when it comes to, let's just say, auto insurance. It's not about your driving record.
Yeah, there's some of those things that are like, why is your credit report part of your insurance premium?
Exactly.
I don't really understand that.
There have been attempts from Representative Jordan, who's on the insurance committee with me. I think last year we talked about that. We don't know why it's still a part, but it's still used. They may say, oh, it's like a soft, inquiry or something like that. But it's still not about just your driving record. So I remember asking Commissioner Donald on that, if you have the ability in your office to address that, why are we not utilizing that?
What did he say?
That was a good question.
He said that was a good question?
No answer. And I don't know if the commissioner this time has done it.
Okay.
So we know that to be a fact, that it can be addressed from their office, because other states don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just a disservice, I think, to the constituents of Louisiana. And I shared with some of the PAC members of some of the insurance companies that, it's really hard when you're trying to teach your teenage or young adult children why their insurance may be different than their friends. Because of their family dynamics. The mother's education or parents, dad's income and where they live and those things. Should not be, if that's not nationally the way that it's across the board.
I believe it should just be driving record, and
because some states don't have those things.
I get it.
So you can't say it's just the claims.
All right, let's see. We're down to let me see here. We got a couple minutes.
Okay.
So I want to ask you about the upcoming session and particular bills you might be carrying.
Not many of interest. Of course, I made the 5, but there, of course, some talk about home here with those abandoned apartment complexes and accountability for those LLCs. I did attempt to, which I have in the past, about criminal charges there. However, with the blight issue, we did change that. I did look into that to say blighted property does not have to be vacant. It can be occupied as well. Because remember, there were people living in these apartment complexes in uninhabitable conditions. And that has, plagued me for a very long time. And so we're going to try to address that, where there's first accountability while people are in, before they're forced to move out because of utilities, or forced to move out because they refuse to make the improvements. And I did hear from my former seatmate yesterday, hey, I was working on a bill somewhat of that nature with the District Attorneys Association. And so we're actually going to have them look at my bill as well. We didn't know we were working on something similar.
Okay.
So that was kind of good news. And I'm hoping something good comes out of that for accountability of these home
these apartments.
Owners.
Well, that's I mean, that is a little, that's crazy that these I guess landlords that own these things
are able to walk away.
Walk away with a $200,000 water bill. Although I think one of them did pay finally.
Well, we looked at that too, and I'm hoping that moving forward, the law is really clear. I think in that area, we didn't even we decided not to change that as it results to the fines. But I'm hoping that even across the state, because obviously my former seatmate is in New Orleans, and this is a thing. Violations should matter when code enforcement or someone goes in. So even with these former complexes that we have, remember the one that was near Cliff Street in Shreveport, the first ones that really started to come out.
Okay,
off of West 7th, I can't remember their name, but it was the old Bel Air. Community, but it's near the Career Center. That was the first one. And so why were they able to go on for so long with those conditions and charging rent? You know, why is it Centenary? The apartments on Centenary, why, again, they were paying rent and they were able to go on for so long. It didn't just happen there. They could have been fined a long time ago because I'm sure people were calling in prior to that year. So each time that they go in should have been a violation. Whether it was 10 times, this 1 year, now it's another 10. So that's 20 violations. That's almost, $1,000 or $2,000 per violation.
Yeah.
And so we just want to make sure that the municipalities are using that in the proper way.
All right. State Representative Tammy Phelps has been our guest today. There's a lot we could keep talking about. But we've used our time. We'll do it again.
Okay.
You have a session coming up in just a few days, so good luck down there.
Oh, I'll need it. Yeah.
I'll be down there for a little bit,
Okay.
so we'll talk to you down in Baton Rouge.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
Tammy Phelps, our guest today. Thank you for watching this edition of the app. It stands for Architects, People, and Politics. It's available wherever you get your podcasts and on all KTBS digital platforms. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one.